I have been telling you about this interview. I am so excited about the UN Habitat Assembly that is going to happen from the 5th to the 9th. And in studio, we do have the Executive Director of UN Habitat, Maimuna Muhammad Sharif. Thank you so much for joining us today. When I did the introduction, someone sent a question and said they would like to know more about the UN Habitat. Let's start from there. What is the mandate of the UN Habitat?
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for having me here. First of all, I would like to wish a happy Madaraka Day to all Kenyan today.
Yes.
So I think this is a sweet day, and thank you for having me here. Let me start that UN Habitat is the United Nations Human Settlements Program.
Yes.
So when you talk about settlement, it's dealing with cities and human settlements, and not only in cities, but it's also in the rural areas and secondary cities, tertiary cities, and all that.
Yes.
And we are mandated by the General Assembly for the promote socially and environmentally sustainable cities and human settlement. And our vision is to provide a better quality of life for all in an urbanizing world.
Yes.
So that is the mandate of UN Habitat.
Yes. And what is the UN Habitat Assembly?
Yeah, the UN Habitat Assembly is the highest legislative forum, platform, when we talk about urban issues. This is every 4 years in our governance structure of UN Habitat, and we will be having this second Habitat Assembly. The first one was in 2019, and this is the second one, and we are going to have it on the 5th, officially on the 5th of June to the 9th of June. But somehow that we already have a few programs starting on Saturday and Sunday.
And what should we expect from this meeting?
Since I said that this is the platform for to deal with sustainable urbanization, and I really would like to see that, because the theme of the Habitat Assembly is looking into the multilateralism, how effective and efficient it is, and then in the promoting the urban future in this global crisis. There are 5 areas of priorities that we would like to see. And my expectation is that the 193 member states will discuss. First is on the adequate housing. Second is on climate change. Third is on urban crisis. Fourth is on how can we localize the 169 the targets of the Sustainable Development Goal. And the fifth is that prosperity and finance. So I really hope that the member state will discuss these 5 topics and come out with the outcomes where we can bring this to the high-level political forum in New York in July, where Sustainable Development Goal 11, which is we are the custodian, UN Habitat the custodian of this, to be discussed in New York, and of course towards the summit of the future in 2024. That is my expectation, that we can get the outcome, solid outcome, action-oriented, and fully funded.
Yes, I like that, action-oriented. So we'll see action after the assembly. And it's interesting, you've mentioned that the 5 areas, one of them being housing. And today during the Madaraka celebrations, the president really spoke about housing. Why is housing so important?
I think housing is very, very important, that it creates dignity. It is a right of everyone to have a roof above the head. But for UN Habitat, we are not only talking about the roof or the 4 wall. We are talking about building communities. We are talking about building the good quality of life. When you talk about housing, this link to, as what I think the president mentioned, about the creation of employment, and also linked to the provision of basic services like water, electricity, sanitation, and at the same time also linked to health, when you have health and education, and at the same time this is also to promote the livelihood and building up the community. So housing is a catalyst for in order for us to have a better quality of life.
Yes, and you just mentioned housing is a basic human right, but we continue to see hundreds of millions of households around the world continue to be excluded. How can governments bridge this gap? And I like the fact that you said there will be action. What are some of the announcements that you would also like to see governments make after the meeting?
Yeah, one of the areas that I would like to see is that also from my experience as an urban planner, as a former mayor in Malaysia, that we need data. With data, we can formulate the policies and regulations that have to be implemented. Not only the giving the policies which is not implementable. I think this is very, very important for any government or any countries to have the political will to put housing at the center, and also giving the provisions of regulations, and at the same time the governance. Second is that we really need the collaboration with the private sector, because this is very, very important, because the government cannot be alone giving all this affordable housing or not for everybody. But we need the collaboration with the private sector. And how can we, but that's why with the governance and the regulation, how we can give the enabling factor environment to attract the private sector to also to join together with the government to provide affordable housing. And third is also on the financing. Because if you have the policy, you have the governance without the finance, this is also is very difficult. And I think last but not least, I think what the government of Kenya is doing is how can we transform, not only upgrade, but transform the slum. When he's mentioned about we have 1,140 slum in Kenya, how can we transform the slum? I think this is very important. And I have the experience when I was the mayor in Penang, how we can encourage the private sector to join us by giving them the actual data and also a different types of category of affordability. So in order to get housing at the center, I used to say we need 3 A's. It must be adequate, it must be accessible, it must be affordable. So that is very important.
As a former mayor in Malaysia, I'm curious, when you're driving around Nairobi, are there things that you see that maybe can be done better to improve the county? And also when it comes to urban climate action, what are some of the programs that you think we should take up?
Yes, one thing that when I touched down at the airport in 2018, I was impressed by the announcement of the Kenya airline. They said that, ladies and gentlemen, those who are giving plastic, please leave it in the plane. When you take plastic out from the plane, then you will get penalty. I think that is very good.
So you knew this is the city I should be in.
That is the action. And then I drove. I drove. You asked me about my first picture. I drove from the airport to the cities. When at that time I stayed in the Tribe Hotel, and I looked that people are walking along the highway. I think that is. I asked my driver, why are they walking? They said they are walking to the factory, to the place that they work. But I think that is another one, is in provision of the pedestrian walkways. I think that is one of the area. You can see that they already done in many part of the city center. And the third, when you talk about climate change, I think there are 2 things when you look into climate change. One is climate adaptation. Second is climate mitigation. How the county adapt to the climate, for example, like natural disaster like flooding and then heat wave, and the drought recently in this. So we, UN Habitat, work very close with the government of Kenya. We work very close with the governor. We recently launched the Nairobi River Urban Regeneration Project.
Yes.
And we also looking into the city of Nairobi Urban Regeneration, Lituli Avenue. We did that together with the governor. And we also work together with the government, with the Ministry of Housing on Mount Voko project.
Yes.
We provide the land, and then we work together with them, providing 5,000 units of affordable housing. And on the climate change, we are also working together with government of Kenya and the mayor, the governor of Mombasa, to look into the Go Blue project. How can we look into the coastal area, the marine planning? So I think this is started from the Go Blue conference that we had in Kenya. So there are, and also solid waste management. We did transform Dendora, Dendora, and also the how we transform the open landfill into public spaces. So these are a few areas in terms of the adaptation, and mitigation is looking into that. For example, we UN Habitat giving the tools and also the guidelines on resilience. So we are looking into two. One is the project, another one is giving them the guidelines, the tools, and also the policy, working together with the government, the county, and also the community and the youth and the women's group.
Yes. Let me take you back to the Habitat Assembly.
Yes.
I'm curious about the draft resolution.
Oh.
Yes. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, there are. We are now working into a few draft resolution. Of course, is on housing.
Yes.
There's a draft resolution on housing. There are draft resolution on this slum transformation, on climate change. And also on localization of the SDG, and also on the draft resolution on the biodiverse and the resilient city, which is very much linked to the 5 themes that I mentioned to you.
Yes.
Adequate housing, urban crisis, the localization of SDG, and then on the finance. And at the same time, it's also on the climate change. So the resolution are towards the 5 themes, the 5 priorities that the member state identified.
Yes, yes. One cannot, and I've listened to many of your speeches, and you really like talking about the SDGs, but there are still many countries that are missing the goal. What can be done to enhance the chances of nations meeting the SDG goals?
Yes, from our studies and research, that is, all this global crisis started with COVID-19 and then with the disasters. We are, I think, that is far behind from achieving the SDG, because now we are already halfway. We are only 7 years towards 2030. I think what we really need is that's the reason why the theme of the Habitat Assembly is how effective and efficient the multilateralism. We need to tackle, in order to accelerate the implementation of SDG, we need integrated approach. We need to work together at the global level, regional level, and also within countries and within cities. I think this is very important. Second is that we need to translate policy into action. We have so many reports already. I think we have, the scientists have shown us the report is enough report, enough resolution. What we need now is that action, and action at all levels, not only at the government, also action at the individual, action as the company. For example, looking into the new innovation, new technology, and looking into the circular economy. And at the same time, I saw just now that is by September you will have the the electric motorbike.
Yes, the announcement by the president.
That is also ways how can we reduce the carbon emission, because cities emit around 70% of the carbon emission globally.
So apart from the walking, now we'll have the electric bikes. I want to find out, even as we have the UN Habitat Assembly next week and have discussions, and you keep on mentioning action, how does that then now trickle down to the people or citizens of the various countries? That will be my next question for you, but first let's take a break.